Hi guys, so this is the second installment of sort of balancing equations. Um, the first installment is breaking apart and recognizing what formulas actually mean. Without that, it makes it very difficult to balance equations because you're not sure what you're looking at to balance. So you need to have done this probably beforehand if you're not sure about balancing equations. This sort of step is pretty important to understand what these little twos mean. Um, yeah, so I'm going to step through this off the sheet that you guys will be able to have, and I'll sort of fill in things as we go. We're gonna look at water and a reaction that takes place with water, where it sort of is broken apart into its separate components, I guess you could say. So we start off with H2O just here with our water, nice little fuzzy compound, and then we through whatever process, we're breaking it apart. Okay, this is the reaction that's happening here, and our products are this. Our reactant side is here, and our product side is here. So the first step is to, similarly what we did up here, is to break this down and see what we've got to work with and what's unbalanced and what isn't. When we split it apart, and we take the reactant side first, we've got H's, and we have two of those H's. It's the two down the bottom here. So there's a two there, two H's, two hydrogens. The other thing we've got is an oxygen. So how many oxygens? We've just got one. So it's a little bit different in the setup compared to that, but it's meaning the same thing. On the product side over here, we come down here, and I keep my same elements that I have in the reactant side, I put over here as well. Because whatever I have over here, I should still have on this product side. I can't just create a new element out of nowhere or get rid of things from out of nowhere usually. So I've got my hydrogens here, and up here I can see I've got two hydrogens, so I'll whack a 2 down here. The only other one is the oxygens, and it says I've got a little 2 here, so there's 2 oxygens in place there. Now, the only issue now that when I look at this is my reactant side has 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen that I started the reaction off with, and then somehow I've got 2 of each of the elements over on the product side, which is an issue because I can't just magically spawn oxygen out of nowhere. So the reason we balance is to see how much we would need to react in the start to form this as a product. So this is all this is saying. So we can't simply create more elements out of thin air. It's simply been rearranged. It shouldn't have added or subtracted anything. So what we're going to do is try to balance this out. Now, for this one, there's only hydrogens and oxygens, but I've heard it from a lot of different people that if you've got other elements in there besides hydrogen and oxygen, you should probably leave the H's and the O's till last when you're balancing. You should do the other ones first. But this, we don't have a choice. We've only got hydrogens and oxygens, so we're just going to go nuts with it. So let's balance the oxygens first, as they're the ones that are uneven. So over here, we've got 2 oxygens. Here we've got 1. So it stands to reason the first step for me would be to make this the same as this side. Now to do that with chemistry, the way we can balance is we can't just add little 2's here. We can't add these. They're called subscript. We can't add subscript or just take subscript away. The only thing we can add is coefficients to the front of things. And if you can't remember what maths terms are, coefficient is simply a number out the front of things. So if we come down here, in order for me to make this oxygen 2, I will need to add a 2 out the front of this side up here. What that 2 does is it multiplies everything in here after it by 2. So I've got 2 times the hydrogen and 2 times the oxygen, because that was my goal, to balance out the oxygen. But in order to do that, I can only do it by whacking a 2 out the front. And the issue with that, of course, is it affects the hydrogens as well. But let's come down here and see what's happened. So I've got my magical 2 at the front. I'll just highlight that in red to show you what I've actually done. Put a 2 out in place here. So now when I look at this, I go hydrogens, I had 2 to start with, and then I multiply that by 2. So I've got 4 hydrogens now from adding this 2 in. But my oxygens are good. So I've got the 2 oxygens now, whereas before I only had 1. Now my oxygens are right, so that's matched. But the problem is now my hydrogens are out of balance as well. So now I look at this and I say, well, I need 2 extra hydrogens on this side to make it balanced. So what can I do? Well, first thing I can do is put, how many do I need? Well, I need there to be 4, and I've only got 2. So 2 times what gives me 4, 2 times 2 does. So if I put a 2 out the front of here, make this a red as well, show you that it's been added. All of a sudden, my hydrogens on this side are now 2 times 2, which is 4, and they're 4 over here. My oxygens are 2 here, and they're 2. I can see I've got perfect balance in all my elements on both sides, the reactants and products. So there's a couple of rules. You can only ever add coefficients, these larger numbers out the front. You can't ever add subscript in. I couldn't just add in a little 2 here after the O to make that 2 oxygens. And the reason for that is because it's a compound in itself. So if this is all one thing, I need to get 2 of that whole thing to get any of those elements back in balance. So now it's all been balanced. And the only other thing you got to remember is if there is a 2 out the front of something, or another number out the front of something, it's multiplying everything by that number that it's connected to. Okay. If I, for instance, put a 2 out front of here, which I did down here, so I'll get rid of that, I put a 2 here, does that mean to say that this oxygen is multiplied by 2? No. And the reason for that is over here, these 2 are connected. Over this side, they're not connected. They're separated and added to each other. It's very different. So if I put a 2 out the front of this hydrogen, it's only affecting the hydrogen, not this oxygen over here. If I put a 2 out the front of this hydrogen, it's affecting everything, including the oxygen. So I hope that sort of helps in how to balance a basic sort of equation. I will do another one that's more complex, in able to show you some hints and tips with something that isn't hydrogens and oxygens. Hopefully that helps and allows you to balance. Thanks.